This election year, we're seeing a big emphasis on voting by mail, but it's not a new concept. In fact, people have been casting their votes this way for hundreds of years. We talked to a UNLV professor about the history of the mail-in ballot.
Today, frankly, because of the pandemic, it's more important, but it's also a question of what can we do to make sure that the greatest number of people do cast their ballots? How do we make it more convenient or more available to them?
The mail-in ballot dates back to the beginning of colonial settlements.
They had to use it at times in the 17th century, and there was some during the Revolutionary War.
But the big rise in voting by mail was during the Civil War, so men who were away serving in the military were able to cast their vote.
20 states allowed the voting to go on absentee, if you will, through the mail, being done in their camps and sent home.
Eventually, it became more about access to voting, coming from a time when there were outbreaks like smallpox and polio, and when many more people lived in rural areas and had to travel long distances to vote.
They did not have the same kind of medical treatment that we have. So being able to vote from home by absentee became more important.
Times are also changing in terms of counting the votes. A big question today is how soon we'll reach a tally, but having to wait for one is not a new issue.
What we may face this year with mail-in balloting is not knowing on election night or even early the next morning who won. In the 19th century, that was quite common.
One example, the 1876 election between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden.
There was violence associated with the election. There was some fraud going on, and we didn't actually know who was going to take the oath of office until a few days before the oath of office would be administered. And the country got through it.
He also told us back in the 19th century, voting was a social activity. It wasn't until around the 20th century when people became more private about who they were voting for.